Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So if you're watching the recording, I just did a little bit of an introduction. I'm Michael, and you'll also get an opportunity to meet Kwong Nui and Meena Jha as well. And we're going to talk about various different models of collaboration: internal collaboration, external collaboration, and international collaboration as well. We're going to give you some case studies, and we're from various institutions. I'm from CQU, and Meena's from CQU, and Kwong Nui is from the Sydney International School of Commerce and Technology, or Technology and Commerce. I'm sure she'll correct me. I can never remember what order they go in. So we're going to tell you a bit about collaboration, and we're going to think a little bit about grants in particular, but it doesn't have to be grant funding, right? I think when you think collaboration, you often think about grant funding, or at least I do, because grant funding for me gives me a driver for collaboration. Right, but you don't need grant funding for collaboration. You can just decide there's something that you're really passionate about, and you'd like to explore that area, and that's fine too. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about internal collaboration, and then we'll go from there. And we're hoping that, depending on how things go, we'll have a little bit of time for questions and answers as we go along. And as Kwong Nui said in the chat, if you'd like to talk in the chat in the meantime, go for it, because there's three of us, only one of us is talking. And so if you've got any questions, then one of the other two of us is surely available to answer your questions. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about internal collaboration. And the program I'm going to talk to you about is a program that we run at CQU, which is called the Learning and Teaching Research and Development Grant Program. And the Learning and Teaching Research and Development Grant Program is a small grant program predominantly for internal collaboration between CQU staff members, although external people can be involved in the grants as well, but it's generally for internal staff, and it's a relatively small amount of money. I think the biggest grant is $12,000. It used to be that the biggest grant was $5,000. I did a fellowship at the University of New South Wales a couple of weeks ago, and I went to one of their communities of practice, and they were talking about a program that they had at UNSW, which was the education-focused internal grant program, $10,000 for internal education focused staff at the University of New South Wales to work together. And so I think this kind of grant program is not that uncommon at lots of different institutions, but even if you don't have it, it doesn't matter. All of the mechanisms still apply. You can still have the same idea. And what usually happens is that somebody comes up with an idea. Right, so somebody says, "Hey, there's this terrible problem, some problem that I want to solve in teaching." In this is learning and teaching research and development grants. It's almost always in my classroom, in the paramedics classroom, in the anatomy classroom, in the computer science classroom. Here's this thing I want to do, this problem I want to solve. How am I going to solve it? So they come up with this idea, and then they start to work it into some sort of project. And so at that point, once you did that change slides, yeah, or do I need to press the sync to presenter? How do I drive the slides, or do you need to drive the slides, Josiah or Kwong Nui?
You can take a control.
Let me. Oh, I can't see. If I press that. Grid view. Ooh, I'm not sure if I can take control. Oh, it looks like that worked. Okay. So it should be on the tip slide. Hopefully it's on the tip slide. So you've come up with this idea, right? And you've gone, I want to try this thing, right? I want to try this thing in my classroom, or I want to do this research. First thing you've got to do is you've got to look for like-minded colleagues. Right. And sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. And it's very much the case that you have to just sort of try. Right. You kind of go, OK, I want to do this work. Who do I need to work with? Right. And if you're like me and you're in the School of Engineering and Technology, then maybe you find somebody in the Central Learning and Teaching Unit that knows a bit about learning design. You say we need a learning designer, right? Or you find somebody in education that knows a bit about education, right? Or if you're doing work in, physical activity and you want to understand behavior, then maybe you reach out to the School of Psychology and say, hey, is there somebody in psychology that can help me, right? So look for those like-minded colleagues, and you kind of want to interrogate and say, are you passionate about doing this work? If they're not passionate about doing the work, they won't do the work, right? You need somebody that is actually interested in exploring these ideas, that's passionate the way that you're passionate about those ideas. And then you need to think about spreading out your skill sets a little bit as well. And so I do this all the time, right? I acknowledge the things that I'm good at, but also the things that I'm not so good at. And I look for collaborators that are better at certain things. So here's, for example, I'm an educational technologist, right? That's my discipline area, educational technology. So I'm good at education and technology. I'm not an expert in either. And so often when I'm looking for collaborators, I look for somebody that's more of an educator and somebody that's more of a technology person. And often if I'm working in a discipline area, I look for somebody that's a discipline person as well. And it just so happens that the more of an educator and the more of the technology person are sitting in the room right now, right? Kwong Nui's the more of the educator person and Meena's the more of the technology person that I've worked with on previous generations. So you look out for those people, you try and spread your skill sets, and that might be based on discipline. It might be based on research skills, on what you're good at. I'm really good at doing some lit review and connecting the literature to the discussion. I'm less good at planning the intervention, what we're going to do in the room. Mina's better at planning the intervention and what we're going to do in the room. Kwong Nui's really good at dissemination, writing workshops and getting the stuff out there into the world. So you maybe you pick people based on those skills if you know them. And my usual suggestion for, say, the grants people, when somebody comes to me and they want to talk to me about one of the grants, the Learning and Teaching Research Development grants, I say about 4 people is usually a good group size, right? Now, it's up to you. You can have less, you can have more. It's entirely up to you. But 4 seems to settle well in terms of like spreading the workload whilst not having people that don't belong on the grant. And that's the other thing that you need to be very conscious of, and it's a bit mercenary, which is don't add people to your collaboration just because they put their hand up, right? They have to bring something to the team. If they don't bring something to the team, don't add them. And that includes if your boss comes to you and says, hey, I really want to be part of this team, you should say, well, what are you going to bring to the team, boss? I'm not adding you just because you're my boss, right? So find people that are useful in that collaboration. And I found that I can actually experiment. So this is my last bullet point, experiment with ways to trial those collaborations. I found that I can do that with small things that I do with people to start. So Kwong Nui will tell you that we started by writing a public scholarship piece together, right? And part of it is exploring whether or not you can work with that person. Do they actually write the words? Do they actually keep up with the time? Are they contactable? All the stuff that you want to have in somebody that you collaborate with. And then if that works, then you can build it up into a bigger thing. So if you see me writing a public scholarship piece with somebody for the Conversation or Campus Morning Mail, it might be that I'm testing out whether they're actually going to be a good collaborator or not, right? So yeah, that I do that often, right? Experiment with things, but sometimes you just try it and you see how it works. And Kwong Nui and I working with a couple of different groups of people at the moment, and some, we often check in with each other and say, how's this going? Like, how are we working with him, and how are we working with her, and does that work for us? And so you can experiment with small projects, and of course, what you're hoping is that if it works out, you'll build it into a bigger and bigger project. And Kwong Nui is going to tell you about one of the projects that we've been working on for the last couple of years in digital safety that started small and has grown. And she just read in the chat, now I know, Michael. Yeah, we started that. Digital safety started as a little internal grant and we grew it from there. So those are my tips, right? I guess you could kind of boil it down to finding people you like, spreading out the skill sets, being judicious about who you add to your team, and trying out a whole bunch of different small collaborations with people and just kind of seeing how it works. And if you do that, then you should hopefully end up with some good collaborations. And this is just internal, right? But again, internal versus external is not that different. It's just that external it takes a little bit more relationship and rapport building, whereas internal is often encouraged by things like the grant program that I was talking to you about. So let me give you a case study, and then I'll hand over to Kwong Nui to do the next bit. So I was the chair of the Learning and Teaching Grants program at CQU for a couple of years. I'm now the chair of the awards program, and in fact, they've just called for new chairs of both programs. So maybe or maybe not, I might be again. We don't know. But when I chaired the program, I met a team, originally just sort of one person, who I gave this exact same advice to. I'll tell you her name. Her name was Malia, right? And she came to me at one of the workshop sessions that we had on campus, where we were talking to people about grants. And the idea is people come to these and try and get a feel for whether they want to apply for a grant. And she said, Mike, I've got this idea, and I want to do some stuff with feet. And I gave her the same advice I've given you guys. I said, well, have a think about that terrible, terrible problem. What is it that you want to do? And she went home, and it was a 2-day workshop. And I remember her coming back the next day and saying, I couldn't sleep. I've got a great idea. And she was so excited. And she told me about how she wanted to model feet using 3D printing, using plastic, so that students that were studying podiatry could practice the skills of being a podiatrist by, trimming the calluses off the feet and all of those kinds of things. And you can see on the slide some examples of the models that they actually produced. They then had to, so that's slide 4. They then had to find collaborators, and Somalia had this idea on her own. And so I gave her the advice that she could find collaborators. And so she found people that were a bit more, she was very discipline focused. So she found somebody that was a little bit more education focused within her school, which is Adrian. And then she had to find somebody that was into 3D printing. And so she found somebody in our school, the School of Engineering and Tech, and his name was Simon. And they connected together. I think they were a group of about 4 or 5, and they started to try this out. And they started the project before they got the grant, because she'd come up with this idea, she built the team, and then because they kind of started the project and they had a bit of track record, they were able to apply for and successfully get a grant from us as well. When the grant just paid for a bit of teaching relief and for some of the materials they were using for 3D printing, and she produced all of these feet, right? And then she was able to test and produce some results. And then eventually what they actually did is they applied for an award. And by then I'd moved on to being the awards chair, and I saw the awards go past last year, and I went, is that award from that thing that Malia was doing? And I looked at it and went, oh, it was. And I remembered that 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I'd had that conversation with her, and they got to that point where they'd written the award. And I'm happy to say that they won the award. This is the big university award for the best teachers at our university. Outstanding contributions to learning and teaching from the Vice Chancellor, based on this work that they'd done. And I think they've also since gone on to win an external grant in this area as well. And so I guess it's that idea that from small things, big things grow. But my argument that I'm making to you is that you start small, you build those collaborations, and then if you, it will take you a little while, but you'll end up in a situation where you'll be like, oh, I actually really like working with these people. So that's about it for me. So talking about people that I really like working with, I'm going to hand over to Kwong Nui, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about national collaborations and next steps once maybe you've got some of those internal collaborations. So Kwong Nui.
Thank you, Mike, and kia ora, everyone. So for me to talk about external collaboration, not only that we are not working in the same institution, so as Mike say, she and Meena are from CQU, even though I'm an adjunct academic at CQU, but I'm my daily job. So next week I'm starting at SISTC, and Mike got it right. Just the 2 words at the end is technology and commerce, but that's all good. But I know Mike when I was in New Zealand, actually, so fellow Kiwis. So I only moved to Sydney in November last year. So I was in Dunedin, University of Otago. I was in Victoria, University of Wellington, and then I was at Auckland University of Technology. Yeah, don't ask me why I keep moving up north, but that is my life at the moment. So being an external collaborator to start with Mike, and then I got to know Meena, and I'm going to talk about that more. So external collaboration. So Mike and I got the LTRD grant as part of the CQU internal grant to do one piece of our work. And then when we built on the work we were doing, we thought about applying for an external grant. As Mike say, applying for grant is a good starting point as well as a good motivation to keep that external collaboration going. So we decided to try eSafety, which is an Australian national grant. So if you Google eSafety Commissioner, then you will find out more about this grant and what they are doing in the digital technology space for education. So when you start thinking about applying for an external grant, of course, you have to think about who are the people you are going to work with. So after brainstorming, we decided to approach a colleague in Western Sydney University, Jo, partly not only because it's her expertise in this area, because she looks into digital safety in education, but also Mike saw her a lot on the TV. And so it just came out in the conversation and said, what do you think we approach this colleague and see whether she's interested? And instantly she is interested, and then we start talking on Zoom, making connections, and then apply for this grant. And together, three of us successfully secured 3 grants since then. So it was a good external collaboration. So what other tips that we could share with you upon reflection on this topic? So first of all, birds of the same feather flock together. So as Mike said, like-minded people, but in this case, maybe outside your institution. So for example, when you attend a conference, so when people are in the same room, and then if you pay attention to the questions people ask, it can give you a sense of the idea what they are looking into their scholarship space. I remember the very, very first international conference my supervisors sent me to, that was back in 2012. He gave me a task before sending me off to the conference. And the task was to look for like-minded people, 10 like-minded people. And I was like, whoa, okay. And as a PhD student, not knowing what's going on, and then, so you have to figure out. So try to be approachable and friendly and talk to people. So that is how you start building a small step of connection. But as time grows, I sometimes tell my postgraduate students another way of doing it is by joining networks. So for example, special interest groups in either HRSA or Escalite or FLANS, all sorts of networks. And they all have their own special interest groups. And if people sign up for the same special interest group, kind of the assumption that they are interested in that area. And during the conversation, during the discussion, you will realize people may have the similar interests as you. And, but someone has to be proactive. So, just be brave and approach that colleague and say, oh, would you like to do something together? So for Mike, he started off by inviting people to write public scholarship together. Also, for me, you can just have a conversation and say, what do you do in the real practice? So it doesn't have to turn into text-based output from the start, depending on individuals' roles at the institution, right? So if you can do something together, that's always a good start. And it has to start somewhere, and it has to start from someone. So I was quite grateful to my PhD supervisors to give me that idea, even though I have to say until today, I'm still not very comfortable in being that proactive during conferences. But sometimes you just have to push yourself outside the comfort zone a little bit if you are thinking to have some sort of external collaborations. Another way is a more passive way. You can wait for opportunities to come. And sometimes it does. So that's my second point. Be gracious with the first invitation, even if you are put on a minor role. So I can give you an example. So back in 2014, I was approached by a group of research collaborators in Australia. At that time, I was in New Zealand. And at that time, I was quite junior, and the invitation was, we would like you to be part of our research team as an advisor. So that means you are not in charge of the grant if it is successful, or you are not, having the say in directing the direction of the research project, which is fine. And that was my very, very first invitation. So of course I took it, and I learned so much from the research team members. But even I was an advisor, that I didn't get the chance to spend the money, but that's fine. I got to write 2 papers with them at the end of that project. So again, that is something could be worth pondering about, when you got an invitation, and sometimes you'll be like, oh, okay, maybe it's creating more work, or maybe it is something quite minor in your perception, but actually it's not. Because if you make use of the opportunity well, it will lead to something even bigger later. So for that research team, I was invited in 2014. I managed to collaborate with individual of them in different aspects until today. So that was a good outcome. And lastly, I think build rapport with colleagues on various occasions. Working in the academia, you got the chance to work in different arenas, and I think that is the beauty of working in academia. So for example, I met with Mike because we were both on the executive committee for Escalate. So that it was our first starting point. So we didn't meet in the conference, we didn't meet in any meeting settings, but just because both of us serve on the same committee, and then both of us were allocated to the same portfolio. And when you start talking to each other more, then things emerge, and then you work on things together. And for Meena, I met with her because of supervision. So we supervise students together, and then we talk about other things, during and after the supervision, and then we work on other things. And currently we are waiting for a journal article to be finished reviewing. So fingers crossed for that. So again, like I say, various occasions, keep an eye on opportunities and find friends. Basically, birds of the same feather flock together. But even birds of the different feather, you can try to initiate that connection. And lastly, I just want to expand the concept of collaboration a little bit. So when we talk about collaboration, a lot of people jump to the perspective that it's going to be doing research work, research project. Not necessarily from my perspective. You can do things, collaborating things in the academia in various manners. So for example, currently I am editing a special issue with 2 colleagues, one from Avondale, Maria, and one from Hong Kong, Cher. So it's our first time collaborating together, but we are editing a special issue together. And from the current conversations that we have, we come up with other ideas that we would like to do together after this special issue. And even within this special issue, 3 of us are going to write a conceptual paper on this topic, apart from the editorial piece. And we just got it approved from the editorial board that we are allowed to do that, as long as it's going through the same process as any other authors. So I say, apart from grant application, apart from writing something together, this could be another way of doing things together, or trying things out together. That is also a good way of starting a collaboration. So that's me from the external perspective. So I will now pass it on to Meena to talk about something even bigger from the international point of things.
Thank you, Kwong Nui, and thank you, Michael. That was really an interesting perspective to see, how internal grants can build onto getting external grants. which can probably and possibly build getting international grants. So that is what individually we are one drop, but together we are an ocean. Now, when we are talking about collaboration and grant and publication and grants are the outcome of the collaboration. So when we start with the collaboration, it is more about that you need to set up your area. As Mike has said, his area is education and technology, similar to what Kwong Nui is doing, and similar but bit different to, in a little bit different to what I'll be talking about. Mine is education and bit more discipline specific. When I started with, can I get a hold of moving the presentation slides, or Kwong Nui, you can do that for me? Next slide, please. Yeah. So there has to be, when you start with a collaboration, you need to have a bit of a clear purpose that why you would like to collaborate with people and whom you would like to collaborate. When it is going on to an international level, you need to dig out people either using Google, and you can only dig it out by if you have published in that area. Publication is one thing which builds your collaboration. Meaning thereby, if you have an article published in Q1 journal in an area, and then you see people working in that area and you send them an email that, hey, I have got, and you have developed on some proof of concept, right? And you go out to them saying that, hey, I have got this proposal. Would you like to be involved, or would you like to be, collaborate with us? I started with a very small project and I thought of, okay, let me take, it was an artificial intelligence, use of artificial intelligence in health-based technology. And I thought that I might find someone who is working in this particular space, nationally. And I found a professor in University of Canberra. However, there were a lot many, but this professor I had met in, and then again, it goes to the networking. This professor I had met in one of the conferences, and I sent out her an email that this is my proof of concept. What do you think about it? And she said, oh, quite interesting, but we need to have some industry, collaboration. If industry giant can, because it is a bit of a big project. And we thought that, okay, let me pull out some contacts from my LinkedIn. And there is a guy who from Intel Corporation in USA. I sent my proof of concept to him. He's a person who is working into artificial intelligence, and he's the person who has actually developed the motherboard of Siri. So nothing came into my mind then, sending him an email saying that, hey, here is my proof of concept, and this is the paper I have published into. It is more about detecting pathogens in malaria. So he said, it is quite an interesting idea, and we can surely apply some, AI techniques. And what technique you have in your mind? So we started talking about it. And then we looked into the global issue, and we said that this, if because it is a translational technology in medicine, we were trying to see that what could be the global issue. And then we went to see that if it can fit into other countries, and we identified that, okay, India would be, because malaria is quite prevalent in India. So we started finding people who are working and who have actually secured grants in that particular area in malaria, because this Microsoft Melinda Gates, they are actually very much in supporting these kind of grants. So we made it started with just a proof of concept internally. Then I received a bit of a grant to work onto that from my center, that is Center of Intelligent Systems. And then we received some grant from University of Canberra that is called just seeding grant. And this is what Mike has been talking, internal grant, right? So we got that. And then on a larger scale, bit larger scale, it was an internal grant of CQU, internal research grant. It is, I think, 15,000 per. They run it for twice a year, and 15,000 is the maximum one can get. So we got that, and we built some proof of concept to show to the other stakeholders, and they were very happy about it. And this is establishing a clear purpose actually takes a lot of time, and you need to be passionate about it, and you need to follow your passion. And when you're talking about it, is when you're building a group, it is about all knowledge sharing. It is not that you are bringing people from, from wherever. It is what they can actually contribute on that grant. But also, if you are working on to international collaboration, it is different countries being involved. So you surely need to develop a communication plan, just because that the law in one country is different to law in the other country. It may be all right for us in Australia, but it may not be all right for people working in other countries. Find like-minded people, and when you are applying for international collaboration, it must have a solution for a global problem. And indeed, it is multicultural, multidiscipline. When you're developing a group, you require within your country, within your nation, then you also need a person from industry, then also people really working in that space where you can, if you want to, where when you have developed a product, how you're going to validate it. If you're applying for a grant, or even if for the publication, the product needs to be validated. So how you are going to validate that product? So that is another angle you need to think about when you are collaborating with, other at an international level. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. And this is the case study I have, that if you can see, there are a number of people involved in here. I'm collaborating with, different universities, people from different, from India, from USA. Actually, from USA, there are two international giants which are working on this particular project, and it is Intel and NVIDIA. Both of them have developed a very heavy analytic inference engine for all AI tools. And they have just jumped on to integrating, generative AI to all other what can be built on top of AI. And if you want to have details onto that, you can have, that is the link I have provided it over there. And when the case study is about developing a cyber critical technology in malaria pathogen detection system for rural communities, where it is impossible for every pathologist to go and identify. So it has actually attracted Category 1 AIC DFAT, that is Australia India Council grant, administered by Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So it is very important to understand, different time zone is another really interesting, it is always you are in a meeting, in a Zoom meeting. So you need to, it is all coming from what Mike and Kwong Nui has said, that you need to push yourself a little bit more out of your comfort zone, and getting up, at 9 p.m. and starting the meeting. So because that is the requirement, If you are collaborating, people may not be, you need to identify a time zone which fits and suits everyone. So that is another, interesting thing. But trust me, collaboration, be brave. And this is the word I think Kwong Nui used, be brave, approach people. build your level that you a few publication, even one publication is great. Do your homework, one publication. Be brave to contact people. What will happen maximum? They will say, no, we don't want to collaborate. That's okay. Go and find, there are a lot of people working in the same area. All right, and there will be no, in academia we are quite used to hearing no to our journal articles, to our grant applications, but that is not where we should stop. That is the first step we should again take and build on to. We should able to identify that why the other person, if he has said no, why he is not interested collaborating with me. Where is the where I can build up on myself and again approach a different cohort of people who are ready to. There will be many people who will be ready to collaborate with you. So do not be shy in sending out just an email. That is, and of course networking, attending conferences, writing publications, applying for grant publications. These are the outcomes of your collaboration. So fish out, or dig out your like-minded people. Also, they should be passionate about it. I have also seen that when you make a group, in the beginning, they all are very excited to apply for the grant. And it is not only what I'm sharing. I have had a discussion with many professors who have actually attracted not less, almost 30 million external grants. And that is what they have to share is they're, in the beginning, the group is really very excited to attract the grant, but slowly when you are moving into it, it starts fading off. So you need to keep the idea is that the chief investigator need to take the control, need to keep everyone motivated, and need to keep, and that is what the monitoring of progress of the project is really important, because your next project is going to build on to what you have done, on this one. So these are the few, words from me. And yes, if you want to collaborate in person or, with me, just send me an email. This is one platform, Josiah, you have said for all of us to collaborate. All right. So yes, please send me an email. Happy to do any work. Mike knows that, and Kwong Nui knows that any collaboration is great, Thank you, Josiah, for giving us such a great platform to talk about what we have done in the past. And at the end, yes, none of us is as smart as all of us. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you to. Okay, sorry, I'm just hearing the feedback, so it's a bit weird. But okay, anyway, thank you to all three of these amazing presenters who have told us so much about it. And any of you have any questions, you could kind of raise them now. Just tap on their presence while they're still here, right? And I think Indu might have something to share at the end of it, but yeah. So any questions? Yep.
So you would have seen that Kwong Nui shared our email addresses, ladies and gentlemen, which is fine. I'll let her get away with that. Yeah, I agree with Meena. Email us and touch base with us if you'd like to collaborate, even on something small. I just wanted to endorse something that Meena said as well, which is that I've found over the years that having somebody to lead the project is really important. Now, that may not be the chief investigator necessarily, but you do need somebody that's going to drive things forward, that's going to take control of things and kind of keep everyone on track. And yeah, sometimes I'm a sneaky bastard, right? So sometimes I won't lead a project. I'll get somebody else to lead it. They can, one of my junior colleagues, it's great mentoring for them to do that. But the idea is that they sort of round people up and say, hey, don't forget you got to write some comments in this document. Don't forget you got to do this job. Oh, maybe Mike, you have the next crack at this, you know, those kinds of things. And I think that's really important. And Meena's right. That's a key for good collaboration, is that leadership. I think that was the only thing that I sort of thought I should add to that. But I'm happy to, yeah, we're happy to field any questions that anybody has. And if you're shy, you can type in the chat as well. If you're shy, then be brave, I think is what Kwong Nui would say, right?
Yeah, I always get away with it, like not being comfortable or shy by sending people an email or a message.
Yeah,
that would be easier to break the ice. That's just me. Again, it has to work for your personalities as well. I sometimes observe people at the conferences. I admire colleagues who are very brave to approach people for a conversation. You know, you need to know what to say in your small chat, your introduction, and lead into work. So that's a skill. I attended a workshop in the past when I was a student. That presenter gave us a lot of amazing skills, but again, I think it has to suit someone's personalities in order to do that. But of course, you can upskill yourself over the time. You just have to take that first step.
So Amro has a question.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Thank you. Thanks for this. Well, my question is, you mentioned joining networks or special interest groups and attending workshops, and these things are all really great. But there is, I believe, a phase between not knowing where to find them or how to attend them, and another phase where you are all at, where you know what they are, and you all attending. For you, this is the natural, this part of life or work. I am now, for example, just starting to consider research and wanting to start a PhD. So, any recommendations of how to find these interest groups or workshops, or yeah, or joining certain networks that have similar interests to mine in terms of research? Thank you.
Yeah, you just mentioned it, Emerald, is within your question. Your PhD supervisors will be your best first point of contact. That's my take, but Mike and Meena may have other ideas.
Yeah, but yeah, so that is good. Once I get approved for a PhD, so, but it is, I believe, all part of a process. So I'm not yet approved.
Okay, so check out. I mean, I don't know what your discipline area is in Australia. HERDSA is the big higher education association. ASCALITE, which Kwong Nui and I are on the executive for. I'm the vice president, so there's the conflict of interest. But ASCALITE is big for educational technology. There you go. Kwong Nui is typing it in the chat for you. FLANS is the sort of the equivalent in New Zealand to HERDSA, right? Yeah. And turns, I've never heard of turns. There you go. So there, Kwong Nui is typing a few in there for you. And my experience has been that if you're a lecturer, I don't know what level you're at, Amro, but lecturers will often try a whole bunch of different stuff, right? I met a lecturer at UNSW. He said, I'm going to 8 different COPs. I'm so busy. And I'm like, yeah, you're doing too many, George. But I get it, right? Because he's a lecturer and he's trying to find the one that works. And all you got to do is go to them all, do George's trick, right? For a term, work out which ones you like and which ones you don't like, and then be really judicious about shooting the ones that are not working. I don't like that COP, right? Because you will find some that work and some that don't. And the ones that work for you, and there are people that you like, you can spend a bit more time in, which is why this bozo here is now vice president of ASCALITE, because apparently that one worked for me. So, you know, yeah, does that, I think that help. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I saw you nodding.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, I will find the alternatives for this in New Zealand. Thank you so much.
Any thoughts, Meena?
Oh, thank you, Michael. Yes. Okay. I just have to share one of my experience that when I was doing my PhD, and that is quite interesting. When I was doing my PhD, going long back ago, and I was actually doing it from UNSW, and I wrote my proposal, and you know, at that time it was very code centric, and that proposal went to very code centric people. right? And there wasn't any code. I was developing some kind of framework, and there wasn't any code. And they simply said, "Oh, no, this is not, this is not really what is fit for as a PhD proposal." My supervisor told me actually that, "Meena, dig out a people looking into Google who has worked in that area." And my area was software architecture, right? And I actually, because I cited many people from software architecture group from Carnegie Mellon University, all right. And I said, well, I was really very, very down, feeling that, oh, my proposal is really crap and it didn't go forward. And I took the advice from my supervisor. I sent that proposal to few people from working in that particular area, specifically in software architecture. There are few names: Liam O'Brien, Len Bass, Ian Gordon. I still, remember. They are all from Dennis Smith. They are all from, software architecture group. I picked out 5 people and sent my, Rick Casman, another one. Yes, I sent my proposal to them, and all of them came up with wonderful. All right. Yes. And that was the building point. I said no. And then I asked Liam, because he worked, he worked in for CSIRO Data 61. And I said, Liam, would you like to be my co-supervisor? And said, yes, I will be. And I asked Rick as well, would you like to see my, would you like to be my co-supervisor on this? Because I'm not getting a very supportive, feedback on my proposal. I said, yes, we will. And next fall, actually, they came here as a visiting professor, and they talked to Albert Nimir, was the head of the dean, and at that time for at UNSW, CSE, that is whatever, School of Engineering, and they actually accepted my proposal for PhD as it was written. Can you believe that? Yes. So it is, and my supervisor only told me that you are the best person because you have read the, entire, you have done the literature review. You are more knowledgeable than me. You understand where, and you can actually defend yourself. And that is, you know, uh, didn't we write a paper with Liam? Yes, I'm still in a very good touch with Liam. Yes, yes. And then actually Liam moved from Carnegie Mellon University software, that is in Carnegie Mellon University software architecture group was the first group who actually invented few tools who were building onto software architecture, and I got associated with them. We wrote few journal papers, conference papers, and that's how my journey started. So it is also, this is, if you identify your area, go and have a look on to scholarly articles, IEEE publication, AC, GSM, and all those things, and see that who are actually publishing, are really, who are publishing in that area, and send them an email with your proposal. You will trust me, these people are just wonderful. They will get back to you with a concrete, advice and suggestions. No, Meena, take this angle, take that angle, So yes.
A lot of them are teachers and professors at heart, and they want to help help people, right? So,
like Mike,
so you're always surprised when you email the guy that wrote the textbook and he gets back to you, and you're, oh wow, it happens to me. I emailed John Biggs recently, and he replied to me, and I was like, John Biggs, I replied to him. I was excited. So yeah, that's really good advice. And the other thing I heard, Meena, was that you sort of step outside the box. That you sort of were reaching out to people about, and they were coders, and they said, nah, we don't like this. But then you said, no, well, let me try something a little wider for people in a slightly different area, and had some success. Indu's had his hand up for a while, so I'm going to give Indu a chance.
You're muted, Indu.
Thanks, guys. So lots of great stuff about finding people, finding a passionate topic and going through it. But how do you deal with the challenges of if some contribute is not contributing as we want? How do you deal with that?
Kwong Nui's going to answer that one. Off you go.
I recently had that experience, Indu. I was approached to write something together. I said, great, let's do it. But it turned out to be I write and the person get feedback and wanting to be a co-author. Well, it depends on whether you want to stick to your ground and say no, you shouldn't be the co-author, or just take a deep breath, put the name down, and that's the end of the collaboration. So that's my take, and that happens. So that's why I think Meena mentioned about the communication plan from the start. What are you going to contribute, and then make it clear the shared expectations. So if you are going to lead, then you play the role as the leader of the project. If you want to follow, then play the role as the follower by contributing. And we all have to be on the similar page. It won't be exactly the same in terms of the sequence of the authorship, in terms of who do what. So I think it comes down to like any relationship communication. And I think for me, to have to make that mistake recently is because I took it for granted that the person who approached me knows that what kind of collaboration we are talking about. So giving feedback in the track changes is a form of contribution, but it's not collaborating. So we just need to make ourselves clear about that. So, but you learn through every experience, and then you know what works for you better the next time. So sometimes it's not a bad idea to have an experience like that when I think about it, because it made you to realize yourself better and to learn about other people better.
So do you think you'll publish that paper that he just did track changes on Kwong Nui, but then just won't work with that person again? Is that your approach? Try something small. That's my approach. My approach is to try a little collaboration. I think I said this, right? And suss out whether it works. And if it didn't work, and as Kwong Nui said, they didn't contribute very much, then I'll probably let that one go. And there'll be a paper with Mike and some other guy that didn't publish that did. And look, and I mean, and that may just be the way they work, and that's okay. Like maybe he's the kind of person who likes to do edits, and he's worked with other authors who are totally fine with him just being an editor. But if you're not, then you just don't pursue another collaboration. But I think most academics let the one go that they're collaborating on, and that's why you start small and try it out. Yeah, we've had that, Kwong Nui, haven't we, with a grant application with somebody who wasn't too involved, and well, they're not involved anymore in any future grant applications. They're on the first one, but no future ones. And I actually just had a recent collaboration with somebody where I wasn't getting as involved in the paper writing as I'd like. It was the reverse of what Kwong Nui was saying. He wanted to drive all the paper writing and basically just add my name to the back of the paper. And I was, and I guess some people are okay with that, Meena. They're like, oh, cool, I get an extra publication. I'm not that comfortable with that. I want to be more involved in writing the paper. So that's probably the first and last paper that I'll write with him. That one will be out there, but I probably won't do any more. So
it is also, I would like to add that it is a journey. It is not a goal. It is a journey. Your collaboration, your research, your career is a journey. It is not an end goal. So every day you build on to that. And you really need to decide yourself in what direction you would like to go. It is not that only one direction fits everyone. You can be like I'm collaborating with some projects with Michael on educational technology, but also being, onto my discipline specific. So you need to build onto that, have a fair bit of understanding of your foundation. Plus, as Mike said, that you need to understand that whom you're collaborating with. It is not having your name written on the paper, but you should also be the control and not in charge, I wouldn't say, but you should also be contributing to it, I'm surely not a person, as Mike said, that I don't want my name to be just written there, But I would also like to counter. I think that all ethical, this is the ethics which comes with when you are researching in that area. That you are also one of the contributors of what gets published and what work is being done under that, hat. So that is, I think there is no one bullet rule which fits everyone. People are different. They have a different personality. They approach people differently. Approaching them on email, or some people are very shy. Even if you are, meeting them in person, you wouldn't step out from your comfort zone and say hello to other, person even. And sometimes some people are like that. So it is really, but then what single piece of advice is, come out of your comfort zone and say hello to everyone. You never know when you start, collaboration with that person. So yes.
Yeah, and thank you, Meena. And if you just start this journey to come out from your comfort zone and to establish collaboration, I definitely still have it, like the imposter syndrome, and then you feel like you are not experienced enough, or but that in academia, I realized that there is something kind of unspoken sometimes, and in the team or in the group setting, people who are more experienced, you know who they are, and and how you are going to work with someone more experienced, and make yourself clear that I haven't had experience in this, but I'm willing to learn, or from my perspective, this could be another way of doing things. Like what Amru say, you are still waiting for your enrollment process to go through, but that doesn't mean that you can't start the conversation with your potential supervisors. In other things. So, just ask them, tell me more about academia, or, what's your journey, things like that. People who are more experienced are mostly willing to share, and because they would like to see their colleagues doing similar things together.
All right. So I see that it's quite close to 2 o'clock. So first and foremost, I just want to say thank you again, once again. It's been a really, really enlightening kind of session. Indu, do you want to do your pitch?
Um,
Or
yeah, can you guys hear me?
yep.
All right. Well, now since we have had lots of ideas, why don't you collaborate and do a job internally? Think of a paper, think of an idea, give us about 3-4 months target deadline, and let's do something together.
We can't hear you, Indu.
You are muted, brother.
Yeah, yes. You need to unmute yourself.
Ironically, I can only mute participant. I can't unmute them. All right. So, okay, I'm guessing while Indu tries to fix the session, maybe he could send out an email and we could kind of just work from that email. But in the meantime, we just want to say thank you once again from the deepest parts of our hearts to our three amazing presenters. I think this is really something very important and something that we don't hear enough of. Is basically how do you collaborate, as well as having the live experiences that they have had, gives us an insight, right, to really how we can kind of do it in the future as well, the things to look out for. So once again, thank you so much. And yep, I'll send out the what's the agenda for the next research talk so that we can all keep an eye out for that. All right, as well. Cool. Once again, thank you, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. All the best, everyone.
Thank you so much. See you.
All the
Thank you.
best.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.